This is Calvin Cambridge, and growing up as a kid, all he ever really wanted to do was just be like Mike and play some basketball. Unfortunately for Calvin though, not only was he stuck at an old rundown orphanage, but it turns out that he was actually trash at basketball. But all that seemed to change one day when one of the nuns came to the orphanage and dropped off some sneakers for Calvin. Now at first Calvin wondered where these shoes had came from, but then he found out that they used to be Michael Jordan's. And then literally out of nowhere, Calvin realized that he had a chance to be great just like Mike. So today I am putting Calvin Cambridge into 2K26. Let's see how great this kid can really be at basketball as we follow him on his career. So like I said before, Calvin was growing up on the mean streets of the orphanage. And it is definitely not easy for him being one of the smallest people out here, and half the time he couldn't even find people to play basketball with. But hey, I'll tell you what, man, whenever he did, Calvin would be locked in, man. He would be ready, and he didn't care who he was playing against. This kid had a whole lot of heart. It was just too bad that he didn't have a lot of height, and yeah, he didn't have a lot of skill either. So yeah, he would definitely lose a lot of games. He was definitely losing a lot. But you know what, man? Calvin would never back down from a challenge, so he would get back out there, and he would keep trying. Yeah, he would keep getting cooked, and eventually one of the other orphans would take the jersey off his back and rip it right in front of him, man. It was messed up. But this was all before Calvin got the shoes that used to be from Michael Jordan. Cause after, Calvin realized that he can shoot from anywhere. Oh nah, see now Calvin had to test this out. So he decided to sign up for the local proving grounds, where he was gonna have a chance to show what he can do, but it was gonna be against somebody who was much taller than him. But hey, I'll tell you what, as soon as this game started, it seemed like that was no problem for Calvin Cambridge. This kid had just dunked for the first time in his life. Calvin thought this game was gonna go great for him, but then he would find himself down 10-2, and then it would be 12-2. So yeah, at this point Calvin knew that he was down bad, but he thought to himself, what would Michael Jordan do? So he decided to lock in, and he was locking up on defense, forcing up a bad shot. And hey man, this dude don't believe that Calvin can get it done. So he just pulls up and hits a three to put him at 5 points, but then Calvin would actually miss his next shot, and he would find himself down 18-5. Luckily he's able to get another stop, and he has a chance at getting a comeback. And with Calvin's defender sacking off like this, he has no problem taking some shots. But on top of that, man, Calvin was really out here playing some great defense. And hey bro, I don't know, it looked like he kind of frying this man now. But at this point the defender just straight up decided not to guard Calvin, and that resulted in him getting this game within one possession, bringing us to a 20-19 ball game where now this guy wants to play some defense. But hey man, it's a little too late because Calvin is saucing him up, and he's taking the lead for a chance to put this game away. So now this man is trying his hardest to stop Calvin, but there ain't really much he can do when Calvin decided to say, excuse me. Huh. Calvin Cambridge comes back from being down 18-5. And it turns out that he was actually so impressive that a professional basketball coach from the Houston area gave him some tickets to come on through the Houston Rockets practice facility and meet Kevin Durant and the entire team. Man, this is great, man. Yeah, Calvin was just excited, and he was just so happy to finally be meeting KD, man. That was one of his favorite players. And on top of that, it was cool to see that KD was taking care of his hair now, man. No BDBs, good for him. Now, Calvin thought it was just going to be a little bit of a tour before he started taking shots in front of KD, and now the general manager wanted them to play one-on-one for all the fans that were watching from the side. And Calvin was definitely ready, man. As soon as this game started, he decided to pull up and splash this green in KD's face. Now, that was nothing to KD, man. He knows that anybody can make a shot. But he began to get a little worried when Calvin started to fry him up like some chicken at Popeyes, and he damn near dunked on him to take a 5-point lead. Oh nah, KD was beginning to get a little embarrassed, but that was only the beginning. Cause soon Calvin was up 8-0. And after he hit KD with that hey, Calvin was breaking KD's ankles and splashing another green to go up 11. Oh nah, this man KD was getting cooked up. It seemed like there was nothing he can do. But eventually he would begin to come back as he would make it a 15-20 ball game. But all it would take was for Calvin to get one more possession before he splashed this three, and Calvin Cambridge would officially win this game, and he would not only surprise KD, but he would surprise the Rockets general manager. And all the fans in the place couldn't even believe what they had seen Calvin do. So you know what, man, the Rockets GM actually decided to talk to Calvin because he was going to give him a chance to play for the team and eventually become a part of the Houston Rockets. Calvin Cambridge, standing at 5'9" at 12 years old, is officially the youngest player to ever join the NBA. And he was looking forward to making the most out of each and every opportunity he got, heading into the first game of the season. Calvin Cambridge was excited to be in the NBA, but even better, he was on the same team as one of his favorite players. And he was hoping that they could find a way to get it done in their first game as they were set to face off against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, Calvin was obviously going to be on the bench to start his first game, but he was excited to cheer his team on from the sidelines. Now by the end of the first quarter, they did end up putting Calvin in the game, where it didn't take long before he would break somebody's ankles, and Calvin was hitting his first three of his NBA career. This kid Calvin is already making plays, so he got the coaches trusting him to leave him out there, man. They want to see what he can do. Now it turns out because he's small, he was definitely going to have a hard time getting to the rim, but one thing Calvin could do was step back and splash a three in pretty much anybody's face. Calvin Cambridge was frying up this OKC defense, and by the end of the first half, he already had 18 points. Bringing us to less than 10 seconds left where SJ misses a shot, so the Rockets find a way to get the ball down court to Calvin, where he pulls up and makes a shot with no time left in the quarter. Nah, this kid was definitely different, bro, and the entire arena started to recognize. He came out here by the end of the fourth quarter and had 35 points, so the coaches trusted him to take this shot from Yucatan, where he was draining another three to tie this game up with a minute left. This one would end up heading into overtime, where the coaches knew that they had to leave Calvin in. It didn't seem like there was any defenders who could guard him, as he was out here cooking up SGA again and taking a three that takes the lead for his team. And at this point, man, this boy Calvin is completely taking over, man. He even came out here and dunked on SGA, continuing to give his team a ton of momentum as this game comes to a minute left. And now they need somebody to make a play, so Calvin decided to say, "Wang!" Calvin Cambridge not only takes the lead, but he also takes the record for the most threes in a single game. Calvin put up an incredible performance, leading to the Rockets taking their first win of the year, squeaking this one out 94-93, and it was safe to say that the Rockets got a little superstar in their hands. And the media was making sure that they talked to Calvin because he looked like he could be one of the best players in the league. This kid Calvin had the entire NBA speaking about him over the next few weeks, as he was quickly being recognized as a top player and everything was going great for him. Eventually things would begin to change when the guy who runs the orphanage would come into the picture, but we'll get back to that later because for now, it turns out that KD finds Calvin very annoying. He thinks that Calvin be doing a little bit too much in the locker room, and he doesn't like that he was basically assigned to be Calvin's mentor. But regardless, this team was ready to lock in as they continued on throughout their season, and they were looking to hopefully come up with another win on the road against the Boston Celtics. Now Calvin would enter this game early, and he was immediately making his impact felt. He was doing a great job out here running the pick and roll with KD as they score some points off the alley-oop. Eventually though, Calvin would start taking over by doing some scoring of his own, and he did not look back. Because by the second half, he already had 18 points, and he was out here working on Peyton Pritchard before taking another three and making it to put him at 21 points. Bringing us to the middle of the fourth quarter where Calvin was absolutely on fire, and the Celtics had no way of stopping him as he was scoring from anywhere. Now the Celtics did feel like they still had a chance in this game, but that would all change after Calvin hit them with that hey, pulls up, and splashes a three to put this game away. Calvin Cambridge would end this one with 37 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a big victory on the road. He was truly beginning to establish himself as one of the best players in the NBA. But even though Calvin was getting a lot of attention and was actually one of the flyest young players in the entire league, this man KD just still wasn't rocking with Calvin. Well, at least he wasn't rocking with him off the court. Because on the court, Calvin and his Houston Rockets team was on fire throughout the season. They came out here in a home game against the Dallas Mavericks, where Calvin Cambridge was splashing a three to give the team some momentum. And the crazy thing about Calvin, man, was that he still was really only just getting better. Because eventually he had no problem getting himself to the lane, where he was snatching these dudes' ankles and finding a way to get a bucket. Aw, hell nah, man. Calvin just put PJ Washington in a blender. But it wouldn't just stop there, man, because PJ had a hard time guarding Calvin throughout the day. Because by the fourth quarter, Cambridge already had 38 points, and even when PG got the contest, Calvin still splashed a three in his face. Now, I will be honest, one part of Calvin's game that was still lacking was definitely defense, but when this kid had the ability to sauce up literally any player and splash a three in their face, there was really nothing opposing teams can do as the Rockets continue to win throughout the season. Calvin would finish this one with 50 points, and he had the entire state of Texas completely hyped up. He spent a lot of time talking to the media throughout the week because he was heading into the biggest game of the season. This kid Calvin is about to play against an alien, as Victor Wembanyama is coming to Houston, and he and the Spurs are hoping that they can take down the Rockets. Now, it was looking good for the Spurs early on as they had the lead in the first quarter. But that would not last long because Calvin was coming. He was out here making some big plays in the first quarter to eventually extend his team's lead. And by the fourth quarter, Calvin had 25 points, 7 assists, and 1 more three to give his team all the momentum. This kid was just a nightmare to guard for opposing players, mostly because they thought that they might hurt him, but also because Calvin was truly just one of the best players on the floor. And he was the main reason why the Rockets would go on to dominate this game. Calvin Cambridge had not grown much yet physically, but he was definitely growing into one of the biggest stars in the NBA. He was actually brought out to All-Star Weekend to compete in the three-point contest, where I'm not gonna lie, man, Calvin could barely miss. He came out here and won the first round by 4 points. And in the second round, Calvin Cambridge literally only missed one shot, as he went on to absolutely dominate this three-point contest. But you know what, y'all, it turns out that Calvin was not done there, because he was also going to be participating in the All-Star game. Calvin was going to have a chance to show what he can do against some of the best players in the league, and he was showing Giannis here early on that he was not messing around. And by the end of this game, this kid Calvin Cambridge had 38 points. But after he came out here and said, "Excuse me," to Trae Young, he was cashing a three to put him at 41 points and officially put the Western Conference in position to win the All-Star game. Calvin Cambridge would not only help his team come up with the win, but after scoring 43 points, he also earns All-Star MVP. But you know what, man, even with Calvin Cambridge balling out throughout the season, even against some of the best players in the league, Kevin Durant was still hating on Calvin Cambridge through Twitter. And he said that Calvin would get cooked if he tried to play in one of the biggest rec leagues in America. So hey man, Calvin decided to sign up, and he was going to put his skills to the test against some of the best prospects in the world. Now early on in this one, Calvin was definitely focused on getting the ball to his teammates. He only had 8 points throughout this first quarter, but he was doing a great job finding the open man. But it wouldn't be till the third quarter where Calvin let his teammates know that he's about to take over. He came out here and splashed a three in this dude's face to give his team the lead, and oh shit, Calvin's starting to heat up now. Bang! Splashes another three, and now Calvin's teammates are looking to get him the ball. This kid started the quarter with 8 points, but I don't know where he is just cooking up this defense as they have no way of stopping him. His teammates are doing a great job setting screens, and as soon as he gets open, he is pulling it, and he is just splashing everything from long range. Calvin Cambridge had 26 points by the end of the third quarter, but he was still frying this defense up in the fourth. I mean, look at this shot right here, bro. They can't do nothing. This went from a close game in the first half, but as soon as they got the ball to Calvin, yeah, buddy, whang! Calvin Cambridge ends up putting this game away, scoring 34 points with 10 assists off of 10 for 10 shooting from three. This kid looked like he had potential to be one of the best basketball players in the world. And on top of that, it's looking like KD was giving him a little bit more respect. So that was definitely great for Calvin to see, but what was not so great was the fact that the guy who was running the orphanage was actually trying to stop Calvin from getting adopted. Eventually Calvin would find out though, and the guy agreed to finally let Calvin meet some parents, and hopefully he'd get adopted.
There'll be sun.
We run a tight ship, Cambridge! Roll call 0600!
I think you're gonna flip for my sugar-free seaweed rice.
Alright, so Calvin might not be getting adopted today, but you know what, man? At the very least, things were going real well with KD. Calvin actually spent a lot of time with him recently and found out that he really got no family. He talks to his mom a lot, but that's pretty much it, man. He got no kids, no wife, he don't even got no hoes. He ain't really got much going on except burner accounts and talking trash to people on Twitter. But at the very least, KD was beginning to grow a real great friendship with Calvin Cambridge. Eventually, these two were leading the Houston Rockets into their final game of the season, where they would be set to face off against the Golden State Warriors. And in this game early on, it was pretty clear that KD and Calvin had some great chemistry. But still, this was definitely more of the Calvin Cambridge show, as he was out here locking up Steph Curry, forcing a turnover that allows him to get to the other side of the court and take a three that puts him at 24 points in the first quarter. And by the third quarter, he had double that, but he was frying up Steph Curry to put up another three and go to 51 points. They tried to switch some other defenders on him before this game got too out of reach, but it was already too late. Because by the end of the fourth quarter, man, Calvin Cambridge had 62 points. And with the help from him and his teammate Kevin Durant, the Houston Rockets were now headed to the NBA playoffs. Calvin Cambridge would win another player of the game, and he would end his season with a 65-point performance. This 12-year-old kid had fried some of the biggest stars in the league all season long, not only unanimously earning himself the Rookie of the Year, but he would also go on to earn the MVP, becoming just the third player in NBA history to ever win the MVP in their rookie year since Wes Unseld and Wilt Chamberlain did it in the 60s. Calvin Cambridge at this point had become the biggest star in the NBA. But on top of that, he had led his team to being second in the West, and they had a great chance of making something happen as they were heading into the NBA playoffs. Now their first series would be against the Timberwolves, where they found themselves up 3-2, and they now had a chance to close the series out as they were heading into Minnesota to potentially send them to the second round. Now all throughout this one, it was KD and Calvin Cambridge leading the way. Calvin actually had 32 points by the fourth quarter, and he was taking a three to try and help his team get back in this game. The Rockets were down by a couple possessions, but soon Calvin Cambridge was taken over. Because by the end of this one, Calvin would get the ball to Tari Eason, who pulled a three and splashed it to hit the dagger, and just like that, the Houston Rockets were heading to the next round. The Rockets are closing this series out in Game 6, and after the game, it was Kevin Durant who was giving a lot of praise to Calvin Cambridge. He was happy to see his teammate really growing up, and he was glad that he and Calvin could continue the season together as they were heading into the next round. These two were becoming one of the NBA's most dynamic duos. So it wasn't really surprising to anybody that they would come out here and win some games against Denver, eventually taking a 3-1 lead and getting themselves into the conference championship. We're against the Los Angeles Clippers. It turns out that I would accidentally sim the entire round, but the Rockets still get to the finals. Calvin Cambridge puts up a great game to close the series out, and rightfully so, he was earning himself Western Conference Finals MVP. Pretty much everything was going amazing for Calvin. He was the conference MVP, he got his team to the NBA Finals, and he was really enjoying spending time with Kevin Durant. Unfortunately, it was around this time where Calvin found out that there was a family who was going to adopt him. And although Calvin was really happy that there was a nice family who seemed to want him, it just wasn't exactly the family that he wanted to be a part of. But for now, Calvin could not really worry about that as he was heading into Game 1 of the NBA Finals, where it turns out that the Houston Rockets will be facing off against Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. So hopefully Calvin can get this series started off well as he continues his pursuit of the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Now, it was not long into this game before Calvin was isolating his defender and pulling up from deep for a three-pointer. The Rockets were already starting off hot, and it was mostly because of Calvin Cambridge. This little dude just could not miss. But the crazy thing is that it wasn't even just on offense, because on defense, Calvin was still out here blocking 7-footers. This kid, Calvin Cambridge, just blocked Tingus, Pingus, and immediately took it to the other side of the court to sauce his ass up. And, okay, Calvin, what we got? Oh, shit. Dang, that boy Calvin different. The Houston Rockets were up 62-27 by the second quarter. And even though his teammates weren't playing that well, at least Calvin Cambridge was coming up big. He had his team up by 50 points in the second half, and he was locking up Trae Young. And it looked like there was nothing Atlanta can do as Calvin had put up 65 points. This kid was unstoppable, man. He would eventually hit 70. And coaches knew at this point this game was already over. So they decided to take Calvin out as they go on to win Game 1. Oh, my bad. I should say annihilated them in Game 1. As Calvin goes on to put up 70 points, shooting 25 for 34 from the field. And I'm not gonna lie, man, at this point, we just gotta see if Atlanta's gonna fight back at all, because this is not looking good. So we're gonna go ahead and sim this next game, but the Rockets go on to win. And they are now up 2-0 in this series. We sim another game, and the Rockets are now up 3-0. Hey, bro, Atlanta's kind of going outside right now, I'm not gonna lie. But in Game 4, it does look like they'll keep their season alive as they push the finals to a Game 5. And right now, we're about to see whether or not Calvin Cambridge and KD can get the job done. And it's looking like they got a good hold on this game. Yeah, bro, we hopping in there. With less than a minute left, the Rockets are up 24 points before Calvin would splash a three to put them up 27. And just like that, man, the Houston Rockets had dominated this game, and they are now officially NBA champions. This team, thanks to Calvin Cambridge, was winning a finals for the first time since 1995. And for the first time in 30 years, the Houston Rockets were finally back on top of the basketball world. They were officially world champions, and they couldn't have got it done without their star players. But rightfully so, it would turn out to be Calvin Cambridge who would win Finals MVP, and after beginning the year as an orphan, Calvin would end the year as a regular season MVP, a Finals MVP, and an NBA Finals champion. But as great as it was for Calvin to have accomplished all of that throughout the year, there was absolutely nothing greater than the fact that it turns out that Kevin Durant would actually decide to adopt Calvin Cambridge. Kevin Durant was finally getting some family. And thanks to Calvin Cambridge, KD was actually learning to love a little bit more, and he spent a lot less time arguing with people on the internet. But these two now become the second father and son to ever play in the NBA. And they were hoping they could run it back as this next year was going to be LeBron James' final season. And it turns out he had some plans of his own to help his son Bronny become a better player. And I don't really know what's going on with that, but if you want to see what happens next, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also, be sure to comment down below who else you guys want to see next, and YouTube thinks you'll like one of these other stories until the next one comes out. Now, this definitely might be the only 2K video that I'll ever do, but you know what, I decided to try something and see what I can do with it. So if you like what you saw, please be sure to leave a comment down below and let me know. I hope you all have an incredible rest of your week, and other than that, I'm gonna catch you guys next time.